Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting, February 14th, 2022. Ms. Hunt, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Carter?
Present.
Mr. Young? Mr. Walters?
Here.
Ms. Cleland-McGrath?
Here.
Ms. Moulton?
Here.
Mr. McDougall?
Here.
Ms. Hubick?
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Carter.
I would like to do one more week of excusing Mr. Young.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Carter, second by Mr. McDougall. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Would you please join me in the pledge? Okay, first item is item 3. Council is going to move into an executive session. The City Council and City Attorney will meet in executive session to discuss potential litigation as allowed by RCW 42.30.100. The Council will be in executive session for approximately 15 minutes, which means we should be back here by 6:17. Thank you. Okay, we have returned from executive session pursuant to litigation per RCW 4230.110. It lasted approximately 15 minutes and no action was taken.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Cleland?
Yes, I move we amend the agenda to add item 3B, a partial settlement agreement between Evergreen Islands and the City of Anacortes in the Growth Management Hearings Board appeal of the city's critical area ordinance in case 21-2-0002C.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Ms. Cleland McGrath and a second by Mr. Walters to amend the agenda to add item 3B. I think I can do a voice vote on this one. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Item 3B, now on the agenda. Council.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
I don't think this item needs any particular introduction, and I'd move that we approve as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Walters, second by Mr. Carter to approve the partial settlement agreement as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're on to item 4, announcements and committee reports. I will start with a couple of announcements. A quick COVID update from the Washington State dashboard. We had a peak case on a 7-day rolling average at about 180, and it's dropped down to below 75. That was back in February, so we're seeing a good news story of declining cases. Hospitalizations were still trailing, but Island Hospital is hanging in there. Appreciate the First Baptist Church delivering a bunch of lunches over there for all the support that they do for us. So they're making it happen over there. They currently have 3 positive COVID patients that are actually in the house. We've got some of the vaccination stats. I'm still trying to resolve the statistics with Skagit County when they change from 12 and up to 5 and up, but the 5 and up number is about 70% for vaccination rate, so you would assume that it's a good bit higher for 12 and up, which is what they were using for the last year and a half. The city, Anacortes Public Library, February 18th, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. will be hosting a vaccine and booster clinic. No appointment is needed. All right, and a quick, I attended the Mayor's Exchange in Olympia last week, and I think there's some good reports that I will send out. I know I'll be sending it out soon on, actually the report will come out on the 16th, but the economic forecast update from Washington State was probably an interesting highlight, not to mention sitting next to the mayor of Mercer Island talking about affordable housing. So, but anyway, if you got any questions about that, I'll be happy to entertain those. Okay, now council announcements and committee reports. Finance Committee, I think, met recently.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
We did meet. We talked about 6 or 7 items. Number 1 is just a heads up that we'll be looking at a capital facilities plan and budget amendment for the skate park at 32nd and M. I don't know what the 32nd and M refers to. My notes may be faulty, but we're going to be looking at a CFP and budget amendment for the skate park, the donations that we've received there. Mr. Hoagland reviewed the January month-end status update on our budget. There was just a little bit of cleanup. And he also talked to us about the final 2021 year-end. And finally, on budget updates, the storm fund ended the year in a much better position than we anticipated. So that's good news. Public Works helped scrub street, sidewalk, and water work out of the City Hall parking lot project. So that means that the storm fund ends the year with more cash than previously anticipated. We also talked about the city donation code. As we all might recall, we amended the city code 8 or so years ago to provide for delegation of city council's authority to accept donations to allow for up to $10,000 a year of private donations to support existing city programs. And we suggested that an amendment to that code to allow the Friends of the Library, which has the Friends shop in the library lobby there, to donate more than the $10,000 than they're currently allowed for books and media to the library, would streamline some of the accounting that's necessary there and the process that we should be following to get city council approval of those donations. So I believe Mr. Hoagland's going to work on that and bring something forward to city council in the near term. And then Mr. Hoagland noted that Finance and Fiber had worked on a letter to USDA exploring potential funding options for the fiber project. And then I think maybe the last item was Mr. Hoagland expects that we will make some adjustments to our water and utility bonds in the near term, call part of the bond and refund at a lower rate, which will save us some money. And then we offered some suggestions to him as to how he might revise his quarterly budget updates to show expenditures by department as a percentage of the year, not just at the fund level, but also at the department level within the general fund. And that will allow us to have a little more visibility into how they're spending money. And then we'll be able to ask departments, if necessary, why their spending is inconsistent compared with the percentage of the year. Sometimes it's seasonal, that's fine, but tell us that. Where it's not, we'll get insight ahead of the end of the year budget amendment. And then we also, as a committee, talked a little bit about the possibility, the proposal to potentially condense the parks and library funds back into the general fund, because those are the only two departments that have funds independent from the general fund when they are general fund funded. And then we talked about fiber and projections for when the build out ends in 2 years. And we are going to have more discussion about that. Maybe Finance and Fiber can bring those discussions to City Council, because we are going to need to have some discussions pretty soon, because eventually the fiber build out project will end, and we expect to be spending less money when the capital construction ends. And then Mr. McDougall did some additional work on that after the conclusion of the meeting to try to analyze some of those expenses, and further discussion would really benefit both the Finance and Fiber committees, but ultimately City Council needs to be involved in that as well. And that's it.
All right, thank you. 4B, Housing Affordability Community Services Committee. Ms. Cleland.
Yeah, Mayor Mayor Miller, thank you. So on February 9th, we had our Housing Affordabilities and Community Services Committee, and it was actually a kickoff with Makers, the consultant, to kind of talk about goals and strategies for our housing action plan. So we had, I think, 3 people from Makers and then a couple people from Leland Consulting meet with us, kind of go over what their overarching goals are going to be, and then also looked for feedback from the planning committee and staff. So, you know, it's going to, I think, take about 6 months or so. The goal is to do a lot of breakout sessions, to have education for larger kind of open house or online sessions, and then also try to identify some major stakeholders that are represented and underrepresented, such as builders, housing authority folks, things like that. The goal of the strategic plan is really to implement the goals and strategies that our comprehensive plan identified, and then also look for potential pots of money that might be available to implement a housing action plan. But we really want to focus on data, goals and strategies that are safe and affordable housing for everyone in our community. They're going to do some surveys. I think they'll be online encourage everyone to participate when you start to hear about it, kind of identifying demand for housing types among our current population and where our needs are for cost burden residents, and then also what we would like the housing to look like in the future. So if you hear of anything, please don't hesitate to participate and learn more. And then we're going to work on kind of framing materials so they're accessible to not only kind of people in the industry and the housing field, but also that we really have our community support, and so that all of our citizens understand what that looks like as we move forward. So, you know, right now it's kind of a listening session, and then we'll work on our strategy. But it was a great meeting, and we look forward to bringing more information to council level.
Thank you. All right, Planning Committee.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Planning Committee met just before this council meeting, and it was Ms. Cleland McGrath, Mr. Walters, and I with Planning Director Don Miesmer. And we started out tonight with some good news for our community. The Army Corps of Engineers has finally granted permission for the cleanup to be done at the end of 5th Street where that old cannery had burned down. All that debris is still there. So finally, they're going to be able to start cleaning that up, which is great. Part 2 of that project will be restoration of the beach, and that will be subsequent to the cleanup. So moving along finally there. We had quite a long discussion about the current Anacortes cinema, and some different organizations and individuals have brought forth ideas, you know, for what that space could be. But currently, the city owns the property, and the building on it is owned by an entity that leases the property from the city, and then the theater group, the cinema, manages it. So it's kind of a complicated setup, but there has just been talk of what that looks like in the future. So these are very preliminary conversations, but of course with a building like that, there are lots of ideas of how it could be used for a performing arts center or, you know, something like that ultimately. But currently it's a movie theater, but it's always fun to explore ideas for community benefit potential. So then we talked about what's happening at the Planning Commission level, and the self-service storage prohibition idea is going to Planning Commission on February 23rd. And that would take self-service storage out of the allowed uses for our commercial district. And that will go to Planning Commission, then come on to City Council. And there are also floodplain management updates in the works that will go to the Planning Commission in March. And my limited understanding of that is currently things need to be built 1 foot above flood level. But as science comes in and climate change effects are becoming, unfortunately, more and more obvious, and conversations with FEMA have indicated that that should be 2 feet instead of 1 foot. So that's in conversation now, and we'll eventually see that at the council level. We talked a little bit about the draft letter that is on tonight's agenda about fully contained communities. So we'll go into that as we get to that point in the agenda. And our last thing of today is the Shoreline Master Program, Shoreline Management Program, first went to the Planning Commission last Wednesday. And Planner Libby Grage did a great presentation, and that will go to the Planning Commission again. This is a multi-stage process. It'll go back to the Planning Commission on the 23rd of February. Then public comment will happen after that, and then it will all come to council by the end of March. So we're moving forward with that too. So lots of good news from the planning department tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate the explanation on the movie theater property, because it's a pretty complicated setup to include being encumbered by the city with the words motion pictures in there. So I look forward to all the great ideas and having that community discussion about where we're going to go there. All right, this is where we are in the meeting, number 5, public comment. Any members of the public would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda, feel free to come on up to the microphone and state your name and where you live and address the council. And if you're online, I'm looking at a few attendees. If you're not going to talk on the agenda items, on something else, feel free to raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Okay, moving along to item 6, our consent agenda. Council.
Mayor Miller?
All right, Ms. Moulton.
Usually it's not me. I move that we approve items 6A, B, and C on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Carter. I know it's hard. It used to be me doing that one. All right, so all in favor for approving the consent items A through C, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to item 7, other business. First up is Access Anacortes Fiber Internet Update. Ms. Shu.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, members of the audience. I'll go ahead and bring up my presentation. I also feel like the months passed by really quickly and that I was just here providing an update to council. But when I go back and we start, preparing the materials, I'm like, no, a lot of things have happened over the past month. So I know that we have a very standard format that we go through, but we've determined that we think that 13 months is the right amount of historical information to provide on our GPON customer count and revenue. I do want to point out that we've had 90 installs since we last met, and that our revenue has increased to over $70,000. So a very nice uptick in the number of customers in service over the past month as we're putting customers in service in the West End. Since we met last month, we have updated this slide to make it a little less busy. So we've broken down the areas into the kind of more customary titles that we're calling them. So this is the EDA area that used to be kind of the backfilling in our current service areas. The West End, which is currently construction continues in. Weymouth View, which will be the area that we're building out this year. Some ad hoc areas that we've been able to reach with our current areas that we have service that are a little bit outside of our standard area, and then the pilot areas. So at the end of the business today, we had 1,092 customers in service. And as you look at our take rate across all 5 of these areas, we're at 34.9%. So even areas where we're not yet able to serve, we're almost meeting that goal that we have of a 35% take rate across the city. We've had an increase in the number of businesses in service over the past month. And we also have additional static IPs that have gone into service this month. This is a major change for us. What you're looking at is our cash flows. We have Q1 through Q4 of 2021, and then a total for 2021, and our 2022 January data. So know that you're looking at 3 months in each of the quarters, and then just January alone. As you can see, we actually are showing a positive cash flow operation in January. That is a nice positive trend. And there certainly will be times where that changes as we have larger like annual contracts or operating expenses that we're paying for in 1 month that serve more than just that 1 year, or excuse me, that 1 month of cash flow, but we're paying for something for an annual contract. But a really nice trend that we are pleased with. And we continue to have construction expenses as we're building the backbone out in the West End right now. In the West End, full installations are underway. The areas in green that are the areas where we are currently lit and are putting customers into service. So last month when we spoke, we had this area. And since then, we've included this area. So we've been able to expand the areas where we're actually installing customers. Our contractor has increased the number of personnel on site. And so they have 3 new crews that are beginning as of this week and really working on that area in this project. That does put some additional pressure on us to ensure that we have the easements in place. And we are beginning conversations just to let people know that people that live on private streets, we've been reaching out to them and requesting an easement to be able to have access to be able to put the infrastructure in. In the majority of those streets, we need to have easements from each of those property owners. And if there's 1 or 2 people that do not decide to provide us with those easements, we may be in a situation that the contractor will come and go and the project may be built. We've been having these conversations for several months, but we, with the property owners and the HOAs. But we don't want people to miss out on the opportunity to have this infrastructure built on their private street because there may be 1 or 2 people that are holding out. So we're continuing to have that conversation. We're starting to talk more about that messaging. We've been doing it more on an individual level as we've been sending out the notices about the easements. And now we're going to be talking a little bit more about the whole effect. We really don't want to bypass anybody when we've built this into our construction project. So that work is still underway. And we have 762 orders, or 33.1% take rate in this area. Kimberly Henry, who does a lot of the customer service and outreach for us, has been out doorbelling. And we've had an increase of 30 orders in this area just since last month's presentation. And 6 new orders just in the last week as a result. So we're getting the messaging out. Our network expansion, the West End, as you're aware, passes 2,375 premises. That construction's underway. We do have areas in service, and we're continuing to install. The funding source for that was the Savvy Bank line of credit and the American Recovery Plan Act funding. In the EDA area, just want to update you that the design is complete and that we're preparing the bid for materials and construction. We did have an extensive meeting with the EDA so that we're very clear on the grant reporting requirements, and we're continuing to work on those needed easements. In addition to the funding for this coming through from the EDA $2.25 million grant, we do expect to have some funding through debt. And we are reaching out and investigating some federal infrastructure loan options that may be lower interest loans as opposed to one large debt funding option. That will also apply in the Weymouth View area this year, where we know that project will be funded through debt or inter organizational loans and potentially some federal infrastructure loans. So in the Weymouth View, the first draft of the design is complete. They're finalizing the second draft, and we'll have that to us shortly. And materials are being ordered and we are preparing a bid for the construction, and we expect that the construction and installations will be underway in 2022. The fiber availability, this map has been updated on our website, and we're doing that on a regular basis. And this may be a good time. I'm going to pause sharing this and just bring up our website, because we have been making some updates into that website, and I just want to showcase it a bit. I'm hoping that this is going to continue with me, so you'll just have to give me a head nod to make sure that you can see this. So when you first come to the City of Anacortes website, you can see that we've had a refresh in late 2021. There is a tab right here on the front page for Access Fiber Internet, so you don't have to go looking for it. When you come to this page, we have our regular splash page, and a couple things I wanted to share with you is that we have our fiber availability map here, but we also have the ability to check the availability on a live map. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up as well. It comes to this splash screen where you're able to it's telling you what it is that you can be looking at. And right up here, you can type in an address. So I'm just going to type in 904 6th Street, which is the City Hall. It will then zoom in I'm not sure why it's taking so long. It came right up. I'm just going to do a quick reload.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall.
I would just like to point out that working in tech, this is a case of the demo gremlins stepping in and causing trouble.
Thank you.
Happened to me many a time.
Let's see why. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Thank you for your patience here. It's really interesting because I think that it's some of because it's being shared on the live stream. But when I'm gonna just go out and try again. So the splash screen should come up. Well, it's not. Okay. So what can happen is that I can go directly to, when I put in the address, I can go directly to the City of Anacortes, and it will show that fiber is available, that we are currently connected. If we were not, the expected time where it will be going into effect. This is not doing it justice. I know that we've had a lot of work that's been going on here, so my apologies there. But I would encourage you to go to the website and up here in the top left-hand corner, just to type in your address, and you'll be able to get some additional information about what the time frame is for the legend. So it's coming. It's kind of loading on top. I don't know if you can kind of see that it's taking a little bit now. I'm just going to type this. In the meantime, I'll just go back to the presentation. We'll let this load, and then I will come back. So. So then again, this is just another, the map that is also on our website that we're updating as we're adding additional areas into service. This is the nomenclature that we're using, the West End, Weymouth View, our current service area, and then EDA area. So just wanted to point that out. Here, this is the legend that we're using just to consistently as we're on our website and throughout. I want to talk with you a bit about some of the special projects, and I know that you've seen this, but continuing to let you know that with Dakota Creek, they've been a great partner with the city. This is a site that's also on a port lease. And so they have added additional sites for 3 dark fiber lease agreements, and they'll be in service in late February. Swinomish Links is looking for business class internet, some early in 2022. Western Washington University at the Shannon Point Marine Center is looking for business class internet, also in early 2022. And Island Hospital is also looking for a dark fiber lease at one of their newer facilities. So, and again, wanted to let you know that you'll be seeing this van. This is our splicing van, but you'll be seeing Access Anacortes fiber internet out and about in the field. We're looking forward to bringing customers into service. We've had 90 new customers in service over the past month, and we're looking forward to continuing to do that. It makes a lot of sense for us to provide service in full neighborhoods. So if you see the truck in your neighborhood and it's something that you're interested in, we encourage you to sign up for that service, and it will get you in service just as quickly as possible. We are continuing, as we talked about, the update. The website has been updated to include our interactive map. A big thanks to the coordination that we have with the legal and public works departments, and that they're helping us to prepare the easements and plat documentation that's necessary before we can submit to EDA a bid for materials and construction. So this is some of the very detailed process because we have some federal funding that is helping to offset the costs. We're also very supportive, very appreciative of the support from the legal department on the easements as we're continuing to work with the property owners and the homeowner associations. This past month, we submitted feedback on draft Washington State broadband legislation and appreciated that Senator Lovelet reached out to us just seeking input on that. And we're regularly meeting with the finance department, as you talked about early on in the council updates, to plan for the financial needs of the fiber infrastructure as we move forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Council, any questions for Ms. Hsu?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall.
Couple quick ones. Ms. Hsu, just for everyone's, I guess, knowledge, like when we say materials orders are going in, this is for EDA and as well as Guaymas View, or is it just Guaymas View at this time?
The orders that we're placing for materials are for the Guaymas View area. In order for us to put together the federal package, the bid will be for both the procurement of materials and for the construction. So right now we're preparing the materials for Guaymas View to have those on hand.
Got it. And materials lead times, basically, like some of them are not terrible, but ultimately we've got kind of like the lowest common denominator. Some of the materials like MSTs and the actual fiber itself, we're looking at what is it like 40-week lead times still?
Yes, I think that just like everything that's been having just the impact of shipping and just availability, the broadband, because there's been an increase in the nationally, internationally for these materials, and there's been funding that's going out for them. Not only are we dealing with just a shortage due to an increased pressure on the market, but we're also dealing with shipping delays as a result of that from the pandemic. So there are some things that have lead times that are over a year right now. And so we're being as creative as possible. We're meeting to look at alternatives to kind of the traditional MSTs and just trying to be open to ways that we can find things that are a little bit more available.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge, and I definitely see the department doing work to, you know, certainly accommodate those kinds of things. Couple others really quick. Do you have a sense for when RBC will be complete, the backbone construction will be complete in the west end? And I know this is probably a little bit of a moving target because of the private drives and everything, but ballpark?
Right now, we're expecting that RBC will complete their construction by the end of June of 22.
Okay. So then they could basically pivot straight to Guimas View from there, in theory.
We are expecting that we will need to do a request for proposals or a request for bids in that area.
Okay.
And so we are doing that work internally right now, that prep work.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then finally, I know that we had a number of pre-installs kind of lined up. And so the January numbers, we had a whole lot of customers come online pretty quickly, which was awesome. As we get past the pre-installs, I know that we're doing mostly underground now with our crews. Is it from just kind of a ballpark estimate, are we kind of looking at doing 16 to 20 installations a week going forward, assuming no pre-installs?
Yes, that is we're working right now with some staffing challenges. And so we expect that we'll be looking at an average of 16 for the next 6 weeks. And then that will be able to transition up to the 16 to 20 per week.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
This item is open for public comment, so if any members of the audience want to comment on the fiber update, or folks online, any other council members, questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Hsu. And
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7B, our Outfall project contracting update. A discussion item. Mr. Buckemeyer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll give everybody an update on where we are with the wastewater outfall project. Nope, there it is. Okay. So the topics, kind of what our discussion topics I want to run through this evening are going to give a project overview. Going to go through the contractor selection process, and then the contract award process. Both of these are maybe slightly different than we've seen before, and then give us a permitting update, if you will. I don't normally do this, but this is a large caliber project, and it's got a long duration, so I want to keep it fresh in everybody's mind as we move forward. So that's the layout of the project, if you will. Starts up here at the wastewater plant, right where the existing outfall comes out, then continues down T Avenue, down 3rd Street, and out to the end of U Avenue, right close to where you see station 17 plus 00 there. And then the rest of it is the marine portion. So everything before that is what we're going to call the upland project, and everything in the water is going to be referred to as the marine portion. Thanks. So we've seen these slides before, but it's been some time since we've seen it, but this kind of give you an idea of what it takes to get this to get the project constructed. There are it's fairly large diameter pipe, 42 inch. There are a bunch of these concrete balls, if you will, or anchors that get attached to that pipe. Those get attached off-site at a different location. Then that whole assembly gets floated in. You can see here on the right-hand side, that whole assembly gets floated in with the balls attached, the anchors attached, and then it's basically submerged using controlled submergence, and I'll show you that right there. So the first part of our construction will be dredged in, it'll be buried, and then I think it's a couple 100 feet of that, and then after that it quickly becomes just what we call a bottom lay. So that's another great picture of a similar outfall being towed across the pipes full of air, so everything all floats, and you get up there, and then through the magic of controlled submergence, they introduce water into the pipe, which forces the air out, and it's a very controlled, slow sinking process. The amazing part of this, about 2 weeks to get the top part clean, ready to go, another 2 weeks to put the excavation, the sheet pile in, and then 1 day to float this pipe out and sink it into place. So it's got kind of a fast ending to it. Okay, so this is one of the main things I want to talk about this evening. So this is the contracting method that we're using for the marine portion of it. So we are going to get the best qualified contractor that provides the best value to the city using the best use of city funds. And to do that, we're using an RCW that allows us to waive that typically required low bid process, and this is because it's a pollution control facility. So what we did is we sent out a request for qualifications to 18 different firms, different marine contractors. We received statements of qualifications back from 6 of those contractors. And of the 6 that submitted SOQs, 4 of them were requested to submit proposals, the RFPs. And those proposals are due on February 17th. Those that the request was made for those some time ago, possibly even close to a year ago. Let's see, back up. What I want to say at this point is that FEMA has approved this method of contracting. They've gone through it in great detail, so that was one of our hurdles we had to jump through, making sure that just because we were really good with this method, we make sure the folks that are giving us the money was good with it also, and they are. So the next step on the marine portion is we're going to, right after the 17th, we're going to evaluate and score those proposals. There's a team of experts, consultants, and city staff. We plan on awarding that contract at a council meeting on March 7th. And then shortly after that, or immediately after that, we would issue a notice to proceed for materials only. Not going to give them permission to start the actual construction. There's several things that we want to accomplish here, several problems, I guess, we're trying to solve. And one of those, we want to make sure that the materials are here before this fish window starts on August 1st. And we also want to make sure that we have all of our permits in order. We've still got a few, you'll see in a second, no real unknowns, but there's just some agencies that are taking their time getting us those permits, and FEMA won't reimburse us any of our costs until all of the permits are in place. But they will reimburse us for materials only because we're not putting those in the ground. So get the materials ordered. Who knows with supply chain issues what that's going to look like, and who knows with material costs what that's going to look like. But we'll get those two unknowns out right away. And if materials are, a year away, then doesn't make a whole lot of sense to jump through too many hoops on permitting until. So it's kind of running a bunch of parallel paths at the same time. So we would plan on issuing a notice to proceed. If everything's good, that would start construction on August 1st. That's the beginning of that fish window. It runs from August until February. We want to catch the early part of that. As we know, weather's crappy in the winter and better in the summer. Right? So. Upland construction. I threw in some obligatory marine construction photos. So these are what it normally would look like. Large diameter pipe, pretty deep in the ground. We've got a lot of questions, concerns, interest in what it means to do blasting, right? What's this going to look like? Is it going to, blow up or what? This is an actual photograph of blasting occurring as we're looking. You can see there's a little bit of dust that's being created on top of these blankets. There's equipment right next door. There's somebody's picnic shelter right there. Most of what you'll see is those blankets will just lift a little bit quickly. Not a whole lot of sound. You're trying to create a space in there, right? So the dynamite it expands the rock, and so the only place for that to go is up. So you'll see those blankets raise up a little bit, but that's basically what it looks like. And then they hook on with those big chains right there and drag these blankets forward to the next spot, and it's all very, very, very controlled. So much the same with the contractor selection for the uplands. As the marine is, we're going to do basically the same thing with the uplands with a bit of a variation, I guess. We're using that same RCW that allows us to waive the competitive bid process, trying to get ourselves the best qualified contractor for the best price. The main difference between these is we did not pre-select the upland contractors. We didn't send out that request for statement of qualifications and expect them to send us in statements of qualifications. There's a select number of marine contractors that can do this kind of work on the west coast of the United States. More dirt contractors can do this kind of work. So we're just going to open it up, but we're still going to score them based on I forget what the matrix looks like. There's probably 50 different elements we score them on. But, so this advertisement went out on February 2nd for the uplands part. We're going to open those proposals on March 15th, evaluate them, score them, and award the contract on March 21st. That's a rapid turnaround for us. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means in a second. But again, once we get a contract on board, issue a notice to proceed for materials only. That lets us get the permits in place and all the materials in place before we issue the notice to actually do construction. Again, worst case scenario, materials take a year. We don't want to have a contractor sitting there charging us for standby time while the materials are getting there. And best case scenario, we issue the notice to proceed for construction mid this year, sometime in the summer. Okay, a little bit more detail on what that rapid turnaround looks like. Nope, I threw in another slide first. Permits. This is not meant to actually read, but meant more for the, oh my gosh, look at all the permits these guys have to get on this project. There's just a lot of them. Widener and Associates are one of our consultants. This is all they do is track all these different permits. And this doesn't even introduce the FEMA side of things. Those aren't really permits, but more funding, stuff that we have to go through to make sure all the funding is available. Okay, the fast turnaround part. So March 15th, we're going to open those upland proposals. That's actually the same day that the council packets are supposed to go out, okay? So we're really good, but not that good. So what we're going to ask for your permission or forgiveness, maybe it's a forgiveness or permission, I'm not sure what it is right now. We're going to ask if we can send out those council packets to you on that Friday. We'll work however many hours it takes to get all the scoring done and get our recommended contractor selection to you by end of business on that Friday, and then just send out that information to you, because that Monday is the day that we'd be asking you folks to award that contract. So, recap. Award that marine construction contract March 7th. Award the upland construction contract March 21st. Those would be followed by just notices to proceed for materials acquisition, and then we wait and see how long it takes for the materials and all that stuff. Somehow the length of this presentation does not justify the amount of hours I put into putting it together, but is there questions for me?
So maybe just for the public, if you can clarify the marine statement of qualifications that we went, we knew we had a certain number of contractors to go out, that we scored those folks to narrow it down, and then we'll do the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. There was a process we used. It's been a long time ago that we used just to make sure that they were qualified, right? That they had the barge and the material and what they call the iron necessary to do this kind of work. And then once we get their proposals in, then we go through a much more detailed evaluation. How many of these things have they done before? When are they going to start? Who's their project manager? All that kind of stuff. And then the cost is one of the items, but not necessarily the most important one. Mix that all together, and we come to you folks with a recommendation on who we should select.
Okay. So this item is open for public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on these very large projects? All right, looking online as well. And council, any other questions or comments?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Buckenmeyer, for this presentation. I just wanted to underscore the level of project that this is, which I'm sure we all do know by now, but I appreciate that the statements of qualifications are required from the contractors that are hoping to be awarded the contract for the marine portion of the project, because that is of giant magnitude. So I think this is really a good way to go, to start out with a great group of candidates for the job. So I just wanted to express my support for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Cleland. It's close enough.
I was kind of curious, you mentioned like there's two-week increments to do the marine portion and then a 1 day to actually put this huge pipe in. So that's about a month long on the marine side in water work. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And then how long, I'm assuming it'll be simultaneously, how much for the upland portion? How long will that be?
Yeah, that's going to be a really good question, and we can hazard a guess, but until I get the contractor and get his schedule, but I won't know. But I'm going to guess another, a month, 45 days, something like that. The blasting part is really deep. That's a 30-foot deep excavation in rock. That'll take them some extra time, and the rest of the project is at or close to being tidally influenced, so there's going to be a lot of dewatering that has to happen. That'll take them some time also.
And we have to have all of the materials lined up so that we can start August 1st for that fish window, right?
For the marine portion.
For the marine portion.
Yeah. We don't want them to, if like I say, if they say that diameter of pipe and those big concrete balls, the anchors are going to take us, a year. Well, we don't want to pay that guy standby time, right? So, he can go use his machinery somewhere else, but has to come back.
And do we have a sense of when we'll get kind of timelines for the materials? Will you have that for us in March or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Within weeks after we open those bids, we'll know exactly. Once we give him a notice to proceed to acquire the materials, and then he'll be able to tell us those answers. Yeah.
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton?
Thanks. So I don't know if the city has any drones or not. I know that they've been used over at the water treatment plant for the big construction projects that were done over there, like the new clear well and the pipe under the river. I think this would be a cool opportunity to do some filming so people could see what's really going on in these projects to get a sense of how they work, if that's a possibility.
That's a great idea. We should probably get some more drones, don't you think, Mayor? I'm looking at that.
I don't know if we need more, if we already have some.
I was trying. I'm trying. No, we have 2. Thank you. Yeah, at the water plant. Yep. And we're also going to have a camera somewhere up there, just kind of filming, the project as it goes, so we could put one of those little time lapse things together if we could. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Everybody likes those time lapse photos. Looks like I do have a hand raised by Tom Glade, and somebody else. I think I unmute you, or if I can get some tech help to unmute Mr. Glade. Nothing's happening on my machine.
Mr. Glade, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so I have a pipe dream that formed a couple years ago, and I attended a conference on the wastewater management for Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater, and they have a nonprofit corporation of those cities, and also Thurston County, and they have their own combined reclaimed water program, and they do not previously they dumped it in the Sound, but they were concerned about algae blooms and lack of oxygen. So what they do is their treated water is they use it for in their communities, and some of the things they've done are irrigation for the Tumwater Valley Golf Course and Heritage Park and Marathon Park and Percival Landing Park, and the streetscapes of Olympia, and at the Children's Museum, and irrigation of the Tumwater Valley Golf Course and Deschutes Valley Park. And so my idea that someday that a similar collection of cities in Skagit County, such as Burlington and Skagit, Mount Vernon and Anacortes and Cedro-Willie would combine to have their general wastewater treatment, and then use that treated water to water the farmlands in the summer when we run, especially when we run low on water in the summer. And so, the concern for this being the wastewater being dumped in the river rose from my youth in Texas, where I worked for a paper mill during the summer to get through school. And they had and paper mills use lots and lots of water, and so they actually have a reservoir right tied to the big river that goes through the county. And after they've run their water, they treat it and stuff like that. And then the plan was to put it back in the river. And so what happened was that treated water didn't have enough oxygen to sustain fish. So when they started dumping the water in the river, it killed fish for miles down the river. So, I think if somehow that gets on the the Skagit City's, agendas or whatever, that someday that would happen. So that's my comments for tonight.
Thank you. All right, any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Buckmeyer.
Thank you.
And we are on to item C, 7C, letter to Skagit County regarding fully contained communities. Discussion, possible action. I think Mr. Walters.
Mayor Miller.
All right, go for it.
This item comes from the Council Planning Committee. There's detailed background on the item in the cover memo in the packet. So just a summary here for the benefit of council members and the audience. Last year in 2021, Skagit County docketed amendments to its comprehensive plan that would allow for the creation of entirely new urban areas called fully contained communities in the rural area of Skagit County. These could be of substantial size, could be 1,000 acres. A number of our constituents have reached out to us about this. The cities of Cedar-Woolley and Mount Vernon and the town of LaConner have passed resolutions that are linked in the packet, objecting to the county's action here, highlighting the fact that fully contained communities have really not worked out well elsewhere, but also highlighting that the 2002 GMA framework agreement that the county and the cities and the towns are a party to requires engagement among all the cities and towns on these regional growth issues. And that's how the county has treated these issues before, and we'd like them to continue treating these issues. In response to some of these objections on the 20th of January, the county commissioners walked back their action to put this onto the docket. They left it on the docket, but they said they won't take further action to move it forward until it's fully evaluated by the Growth Management Act Steering Committee, which is the cities and the towns and the county commissioners themselves. Because that action has already occurred, we propose, instead of a resolution like the other cities have passed, we propose sending a letter to the county commissioners thanking them for their action to walk this back, letting them know our vision for the county is growth in the cities and towns, in the existing urban areas, not in new urban areas that are created out in the rural part of the county, and letting them know that we don't want to waive the requirement that's in the framework agreement to regional participation in these regional growth issues. We want to be involved in these issues before they get too far along. We also have, as a committee, one edit to the letter that's proposed in the packet. There's a sentence at the end of the second paragraph that we propose should be split in two. And I've sent the revision to Ms. Hunt, but it would read, we should be finding ways to build compact, livable cities that encourage people to live and work in those communities. Full stop. And then new sentence, we should especially avoid constructing new bedroom communities that would result in impacts such as increased traffic in rural areas, pressures on our resource lands, and accelerated demand on city services. That's the edit. And that's driven by the idea that that is maybe the likely scenario if there's a fully contained community in Skagit County, but it's also the scenario that we are seeking to avoid. It's the harm that we expect would result that we are seeking to avoid. So what we propose is that council send this letter to the county and then take it from there. The Growth Management Act Steering Committee, the cities and the towns, assumedly will continue to hold discussions about this topic, and we'll see where that goes. But in the meantime, we'll have made our position clear.
Thank you. And yeah, I like the changes as well. This obviously open for public comment. I know we received a lot of written correspondence. It's all been entered for the record. And I got Marlene Finley, I think. All right. And it looks like your mic is open. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. Hi, my name's Marlene Finley. I live at 1410 Kellogg Place, and I'm here tonight representing Evergreen Islands. We encourage you to sign this letter and send it to the Board of Commissioners, and we commend the Planning Committee and the planning staff for bringing this important issue forward. Evergreen Islands is an active member of the Right Growth, Right Place, Prevent Skagit Sprawl Coalition, which is a diverse coalition of organizations and citizens working together to protect our rural areas and farmlands. Evergreen Islands would like to see fully contained communities prohibited in Skagit County. Thank you for your attention to this tonight.
Thank you very much. Any members in City Hall like to comment on this issue?
Mayor Miller?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who weighed in on this. We heard a lot from our community members, and every single one of them that contacted us was in favor of sending this letter to the county commissioners. My one question I realized as we were drafting this letter is it doesn't have signatories. So I don't know, Mr. Walters, have you thought of that? Would it be the mayor and all the members of city council? Is that how that would work, or what?
Mayor Miller?
Yeah, Mr. Walters.
Yeah, I don't have any particular opinion on that. I think it would be somewhat unusual to have all the members of city council sign such a letter.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd propose that.
I can sign it. Any other comments, council?
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Cleland and then Mr. McDougall.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm really pleased with this letter. I think that it is the county commissioners did handle it in a good and kind of stopped the process, and I was pleased to see that. But I also think it's important, as one of many cities in our county, that we show some solidarity and move this forward, because I think it's probably going to come up in the future. I think the other component that we have to remember is when we want to preserve our more rural areas, it means that we are going to actively have to absorb that population into our cities and towns. So this goes directly hand in hand with our housing action plan that we're going to be working on. So when we start to see that higher density in our urban core and in our neighborhoods, this is to protect those very vital farmlands and forests, and to kind of cut down on all of the sprawl that might come with it if we don't have some really good planning for the next 20 to 30 years.
Thank you. Well, the good news is it got me to read a lot about the Growth Management Act Steering Committee that I represent the city on, so I'm all up to speed on that stuff. Any other comments, council? Motion? Oh, sorry, Mr. McDougall. Thank you.
That's okay. I just wanted to thank members of the community for writing to us and letting us know how they feel about this issue, and also thank the planning committee and staff for a very well articulated and well argued letter. So thank you all.
Any action from the council?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters?
I move that we authorize the mayor to send the letter as presented with the change that I noted to the Board of Skagit County Commissioners on behalf of the city.
Second.
All right. I did hear the motion from Mr. Walters and the second from the closest council member to me, Ms. Cleland McGrath. Ms. Hunt, would you call for the vote, please?
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Ms. Cleland McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We're on to item D, a contract award, 2022 waterline replacements. Oh, there you are again. Welcome. again, go for it, Mr. Buckemeyer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, the city staff is seeking City Council consent to award a contract to C. Johnson Construction Incorporated. We've worked with them quite a few times over the past years in the amount of $771,403.97. This is for the 2022 annual water line replacement project. The engineer's estimate for this work was $900,000. We received 13 bids, which is amazing. And so let's see. So the work is going to be completed before August 31st of this year. It's basically located, for those of us not listening but not looking at the council packet, basically to the west of Skyline Way. As you drop off Sunset, come down in there, it's to the west of that. Sands Way, Parkside Drive, and all the little cul-de-sacs in that area. So we have coordinated this work with our fiber crews. Fiber is or is very close to finishing up the fiber optics in that area. Then next thing we would do is we come in with the water line work, and then the last thing we'll do later this fall is we'll overlay this whole area. So the mess that's been created will be covered up with brand new asphalt street. So, yeah, other than that, pretty straightforward project.
Yeah, so my broken record when I was on council asking Mr. Buckemeyer about this is still playing, and it's the same tune. When you dig up the streets, we do it once, get our water lines in there, get the fiber in there, maybe some sewer work, and only then do we overlay. So,
thank you,
council.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
Agreed. It's all in the planning. I move that we approve the contract award as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Walters, second by Mr. Carter to approve the contract award as presented. Ms. Hunt, would you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Cleland McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Moulton?
Yes.
Mr. McDougall?
Yes.
Ms. Hubick?
Yes.
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. If there is no further business tonight, thank you, council, and have a great night. Meeting's adjourned.